Hi everyone, happy Saturday. I hope you guys are enjoying your weekend. And I am back today to talk about Halloween, which is definitely one of my favorite holidays as well. I'm sure that you guys have seen now, times are changing. The weather is cooling down. We might actually be moving into the red tier next week or the week after, and Halloween is only 3 weeks away. And so I wanted to do a short talk to give you guys some guidance because I know this is a favorite holiday for many children, but some of you parents may be wondering how to navigate the evening safely. I personally do not think that Halloween has to be canceled. We can definitely celebrate the holiday, make it a fun day and a fun night for our kids with a few precautions in place, which is kind of the running theme for 2020 anyways, right? And for those of you who don't want any more precautions in place, I completely understand. I know that we all just want our lives, our kids' lives, to have normalcy back to it. But I will tell you that our due diligence is working. Our caseload has decreased dramatically in Kern County. I would say we're anywhere in the 50s and 60s on most days for new cases, and our hospitalization rate and ICU numbers have come down to incredibly low numbers, which is fantastic. We also did not see a large surge after Labor Day weekend, which was great as well. And this is a wonderful way to start the cold and flu season. Remember, it was only 3 months ago that we were having days where we had 1,900 plus cases a day, and our ICUs were almost full. So we have really done a good job, in my opinion, as a community to bring these numbers down. So as you guys are tiring from all of this, and as much as we all are longing for our 2019 lives, just remember that you have done a good job. We have done a good job as a community, and we've made great strides forward. Looking at the country as a whole, things are not quite so much on the up and up. Cases are rising again in the South, on the East Coast, in the Midwest. And yesterday, as a country, we had 57,000 new cases, which is actually the highest since August. Now, we here in Kern County tend to lag a little bit behind in terms of numbers in comparison to the rest of the country. So it's not to say that we couldn't be following suit. So I would just say that as this next round of holidays starts to approach amidst the flu season, I want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. I know it's going to get a little bit harder as the weather gets cold and as those holiday gathering inklings start to arise, but just try to keep the pace that you are currently maintaining, because I think we're doing a good job. And you may ask why? Why keep it up? Well, quite frankly, I think it's because we need to get our kids back into school safely, and we need to keep our numbers low so that our kids can stay in school. And for me as a pediatrician, this is really my number one priority. I would say that maybe there's about 20% of kids out there who have embraced distance learning, and they're really doing fine. But another 75 or 80% are struggling in some way. And I know that their parents are struggling, and I know that you teachers out there are struggling because the workload is immense. And so while I am not an administrator or a teacher, I really do feel that the time to start making a move towards getting our children back in school safely is when the virus is controlled in your community. And I would argue that it is for our particular community right now. So with that being said, let's talk about how we can enjoy Halloween in a way that will not set our kids any further back from a chance at being in school. First up, what not to do. I'm going to do this first, even though it's kind of a negative connotation, because the list is super short. Number one is don't have a big Halloween party this year. You know, it does tend to get pretty chilly by nighttime on Halloween around here, and I'm sure in other parts of the country if you're listening, and people are going to tend to want to come inside if it's cold. And we know that indoors is much more difficult of a place to be when we talk about COVID transmission. In comparison to outdoors. And so let's try to keep the gathering small, just like you have, so that we don't see an increase in our numbers. And of course, I wouldn't do like a big haunted house type of thing this year either, where people are in very close quarters and they're bumping into each other in the dark and they're screaming because they got scared. If those are one of the things that you do every year, I think this year may be one of the years to just hold back, because I can definitely see that being a risk factor. fortunately, there is a huge list of things that we still can do to make this holiday fun. Number one is, of course, dressing up. You can dress up as a parent. Your kids can definitely dress up. You may even want to think about organizing a costume parade outdoors during the day so everyone can see each other's costumes well, since it's a Saturday as well and the kids won't be in school. And maybe talk to your neighborhood or the local HOA or the block or neighbors and see if you can coordinate something with several kids in the neighborhood. Obviously, decorate your house. Maybe go a little above and beyond what you have in years past to make it fun. Carving pumpkins, having a monster bash with your family. Something fun that I saw is to kind of come up with a fun Halloween dance in your costume and make a video so that you as a family can kind of look back at that for years to come and just remind you of everything that happened in 2020. You could definitely think about doing a camp out on Halloween night, baking Halloween goodies if you guys are good in the kitchen, maybe something fun to do. All month long now for the next 3 weeks, definitely think about booing your neighbors, where you create like a little gift packet with Halloween themed items and then secretly put it on their doorstep just to get everybody feeling good and enjoying their neighbors. Create a quarantine-a-ween scavenger hunt for your kids. And I have more information on this one in just a moment. Or pull out your old plastic Easter eggs and buy those little glow sticks and cut them so they fit into the Easter egg, and then hide the Easter eggs in your house when your house is dark and let the kids search for them. You could do this in your front yard. You could do this in your backyard as well. And just be creative. I feel like Halloween is definitely one of those holidays that tends to embrace creativity. If you're like me and you're not creative at all, then you can turn to social media. Pinterest, Instagram, even just Google searching different ideas will definitely show you that there is so much out there. And one of my patients' moms actually has a free printable Halloween scavenger hunt from her Instagram account. She is Quiet Book Queen. So if you're on Instagram, you may want to check that out. And then she said next week, she's also going to post some candy treasure hunt clues to go along with the scavenger hunt as well. And certainly if you have other ideas, put them in the comments here so that we as parents can all go to one site and look and see what everybody else is doing. So now on to trick-or-treating, which is really, I think, the big question of the day. Reasons why trick-or-treating can be safe is, of course, it's outdoors. And you all have heard about how outdoors is better than indoors when it comes to COVID. And masks, are somewhat inherent in the activity, right? But I will say that a cloth mask is still important here as opposed to a costume mask. And I would be cautious if your kids want to paint on their cloth mask. You may want to discourage that just because the mask is going to be over their mouth and nose, and the chemicals from the paint, you don't necessarily want them inhaling that all night long. So they may just have to use a regular cloth mask, or if you have cool fabric that you can put over it, that may be a good idea as well that matches their costume. Reasons why trick-or-treating could potentially be dangerous in a pandemic. Well, obviously, there's multiple fingers that may be ringing doorbells. You've got kids who are eating candy with the same fingers that they're ringing those doorbells with while they're trick-or-treating. I know we could say, don't eat the candy, but if your kids are like mine, they're definitely eating the candy, right? Sometimes it may be hard to keep that 6 feet of distance when you are either receiving candy or when you are having candy passed out to you. And of course, there's lots of intermingling that's happening here. One kiddo may visit 10, 20, 50 houses that night. And while we think maybe younger kids do not spread this virus as well as older kids, I think that still has very much to be determined. And we can't really control who's going to knock at our door for trick-or-treating, right? It's kind of an all or none experience. You may have big kids, you may have little kids, and we can't really restrict that. So if you do decide to allow your kids to trick-or-treat, here are a few precautions. Number one, if they are sick, definitely switch over to the other ideas that we talked about, keeping things at home. And this year, I think it's so much more important. Even if you're feeling like maybe it could be allergies, but they look a little more sick than allergies. Like I said, I would just be so much more cautious this year if your kiddos are sick to then switch, like I said, over to the other activities that we talked about that anyone can do. I would trick or treat with a smaller group this year. I would say maybe 3 to 5 kids maximum. And of course, don't let your kiddos go inside of the homes. I feel like the haunted houses and things like that were a little bit of a thing of the past, but you guys know this already. You may want to have one adult obviously go with the, well, definitely go with the younger kids, but maybe they can also be the designated doorbell ringer or the person who knocks on the door. And if a house leaves a large tub of candy outside for your kids, I would discourage your kids from reaching in and grabbing it. Maybe the adult can be the one who grabs one piece of candy for each of the kiddos. Obviously respect the lights or the homes who have their lights off. I think you may find that there will be a few more this year than average. And having everybody wash their hands when they come home. If you do decide to pass out candy as an adult, or if you have older kids in your house, recruit the older kids. I think some older kids feel like, well, maybe dressing up or trick-or-treating is too baby for them, but yet they still love the holiday and they are big kids at heart, and they can be a huge asset to you as parents in terms of livening up the holiday and coming up with cool ways to hand out candy. Again, if you have a bowl of candy, don't let the kids grab into your bowl. You should be handing it out to them. Be creative in terms of how you can hand out the candy through social distancing. Someone has mentioned that she's actually literally making like a candy chute. So it's gonna like go in one way and it's gonna go all the way out and come out closer to them, which is awesome. I have no idea how to make that, but I'm sure some of you could. You could buy a new broom and call it your witch's broom and put the piece of candy on the broom and then stick out the broom so that the kids can grab the candy off the witch's broom. You could probably do that with a pretend sword of sorts as well. You could have a fun mat that's decorated and you could put the candy out on the mat and then kind of step away and the kids can grab their candy off the mat. Or you could set up a table in your driveway and you could decorate it to the max and you could have the pieces of candy separated on the table so they can just grab one and go. It could be in a Dixie cup. It could be in a little goodie bag, whatever you choose. And of course, as the person handing out candy or sitting at the table, I do think it's a good idea for you to wear your mask because again, you just never know and you don't want to put these kids who are enjoying the holiday at risk for contracting COVID as well. After trick-or-treating. So what do we do with all that candy that our kids have brought home? Again, wash your hands. I personally am not a big wiper downer of things like my groceries and all of that. But in this particular circumstance, when I think there is just a lot of intermingling happening in the evening, I don't think that it's a bad idea just to wipe down the pieces that perhaps you're going to allow your kiddos to eat that night. And of course, do a run through of their candy bags just to make sure that everything's safe and there isn't anything strange in there as well. One idea that really has nothing to do with COVID that I always like to share every Halloween is to use the idea of a switch witch. And this is what helps me to kind of limit how much candy my kids eat. So they get to pick 5 pieces that they're going to eat over the course of the next few days. And then they put the rest of their candy in their candy buckets outside of their bedroom door when they go to sleep. And the switch witch comes and replaces the candy with a toy or a book or shoes or something that they have had their eye on. And then that way they kind of get what they want and the candy has exited my house, which is good for them and it's good for me. And the reason we do this is that I'm just not a big fan of candy myself. I do love a good baked treat or ice cream. I just don't love all the processed stuff that goes into candy or how it can tend to affect children. And so I think the bottom line here is just remember that our kids oftentimes appreciate simple and novel celebrations. So if you're not comfortable with trick-or-treating this year, maybe because of risk factors within your own home, or you just don't feel like out there in the real world everybody is doing everything the way that feels comfortable to you, then bring it inside and use those ideas that we talked about and make it fun for your kids. I promise you, they will love it if they just see something new and novel. Oftentimes as parents, I think we compare ourselves a little bit too much to one another and we build up in our minds what's going to be like the perfect celebration for them when our kids are often a lot easier to please than we think. So that is about it. Keep it up, folks. I know this is a grueling time. We're going on 7-8 months of this, but just keep your attitude positive, stay upbeat. I know that you guys can push through this, and I know that your kids will definitely embrace that positive attitude if they see it as well. All right, you guys, until next time, take care.